Good morning, fathers of daughters. This is Efrem Martin. Welcome to Grow Dad YouTube channel. I welcome all fathers, regardless of your ethnic group, background, and or culture. To all my Spanish speakers, bienvenido en aquí. Gracias. All right, fathers, we are back for another live stream. Today, fathers, we're going to be talking about parents when the criminal justice system fails children. Now, fathers, the reason why I want to talk about when the criminal justice system fails children is because I am a former state of Colorado juvenile probation officer. I worked in the criminal justice system for 20 years. And in my 20-year career working in the criminal justice system, saw a lot of bad stuff. Saw a lot of bad things happen to kids. Saw a lot of jacked up things happen to kids and families in the criminal justice system. I was a probation officer with the 1st Judicial District, Jefferson County, Colorado State Juvenile Probation Department. So in my role as a probation officer, I supervised children 10 to 18 years of age. It was an amazing experience. Learned a lot working with children within the criminal justice system. I was an advocate for kids. My role was broad, had a lot of different kids from all socioeconomic backgrounds. Jefferson County, Colorado has a pretty good median income. They have $1 million homes, depending on where you go in Jefferson County. Evergreen, Conifer, Bailey, they're $1 million homes there. So economically, Jefferson County is pretty well off within the state of Colorado. Now, when we talk about the criminal justice system and how it fails children, I have 4 videos, parents, that I'm going to share with you today. And we're going to be looking at and discussing how exactly the criminal justice system fails kids, right? Now, a lot of children end up in the criminal justice system a couple of ways. They end up through being admitted to the criminal justice system through truancy. A lot of kids end up in criminal justice system through family court. And most juveniles will come through the juvenile court. Now, truancy petitions that are filed against kids or kids that don't attend school via their parents. So that's how some kids end up in the criminal justice system. Some of these kids have behavioral issues. There's a disconnect between them and their parents a lot of times. There's been a breakdown in the family dynamic within the family. And chances are, if the father's not in the home, a lot of these little girls, for instance, that I supervised, they end up running away from home. And the reason they end up running away from home is because they're disconnected from their parents. And I'm going to say 90 to 95% of the young women that I supervised while I was a probation officer, they were runaway little girls. They self-inflicted themselves with drugs and alcohol. A lot of them have been victims of rape. A lot of these little girls had just been victims, period. Child molestations, just being taken advantage of and being failed by so many adults. So those were a lot of the kids that I supervised when I was a probation officer in Jefferson County, Colorado. And let me tell you, I saw a lot of jacked up stuff. I spent a lot of time in family court, spent a lot of time in juvenile court. And I got a lot of kids ended up on probation through family court because their parents may be going through a divorce or were divorced and they were fighting over the children. So since kids don't get to pick their parents, a lot of times what happens with these children is they get screwed. They get screwed by the criminal justice system. They get screwed by the courts. And a lot of times the courts don't make the best decisions regarding what's in the best interest of these kids. Saw it all the time when I was a state juvenile probation officer. So with that being said, what I want to do today, fathers, is I want to give you a realization. I want to give you some videos that you can actually look at and you could see the disconnect of what happens when fathers are not a part of their children's lives. See, the whole thing when we talk about fathers, right, being in their children's lives, we have to be their fathers, because if we are not, our baby girls and our baby boys can end up in a situation where we allow the state to come into our lives. And when you allow the state and the government to come into your lives, families, what I can promise you is this: It's a big mistake. It's huge when you trust the government to take care of your children, to have a say in your children's lives, to raise your children. It's a huge mistake, family, because what ends up happening is if they intervene and they do something, chances are you're not going to get your kids back the same way that they were before they got into the criminal justice system. Okay? So as a state juvenile probation officer, very passionate, very fair. I advocated for kids, came across a lot of judges and magistrates, didn't really vibe with them, but I had to do my job. Didn't really agree with a lot of decisions they made, but I had to do my job. I had to advocate for these kids. It was difficult a lot of times, right? Because I have 4 adult daughters, 36, 30, 26, and 24. And I can tell you this, I made damn sure my daughters would not ever, under any circumstance, as long as I have breath in me, become a part of or end up in the criminal justice system. And the reason that, being a former criminal justice professional, there's no damn way. Because the criminal justice system can't do anything for children but make them worse. Yes, the criminal justice system does provide interventions. Yes, the criminal justice system does provide a lot of things, but what it doesn't provide, I believe, is the stability of families. Because when you allow the government in, trust me, they're going to go against you as parents the majority of the time. Spend a lot of time in court, okay? So families, fathers of daughters, this is why I'm here. Girl Dad YouTube channel is all about educational resources. That's what I do here. This is my way of giving back to all fathers, regardless of your ethnic group, background, and culture, because I believe all fathers need to understand the sense of urgency we have to have in order to build long-term, sustainable relationships with our children, particularly our baby girls, but with our children, right? The father-daughter relationship is definitely going to be different than the father-son relationship. So we have to make sure, fathers, we are on point. We have to make sure we are making the right decisions in the best interest of our daughters. Because if they don't, or if we don't, they will end up in a situation they will not be able to get themselves out of. And I am telling you, the criminal justice system, the juvenile justice system, can't do anything for our children but make them worse. Facts. Okay. So fathers, parents, I want to share these videos with you and just want you to process, right? I want you to take a look at them. I want you to look at exactly what happens or what could happen to your children when you allow the government to become involved in their lives. See, I believe this. Parents, our goal should be that we raise decent young people. Birth to 18 years of age, they should be decent. They should be kind. They should be loving. They should be compassionate. They should have empathy. So I've always struggled with exactly why there's a disconnect between parents and kids. I've always struggled with parents that allow agencies, the government, to get involved with their children and make decisions. No one can make better decisions better than the parents. I believe that. I would never allow the government to come into my life and make decisions in the best interest of my daughters. There's absolutely no way, because I know what the government can do to my children. I've seen the government destroy lives, right? So parents, here we are today. We have these videos, right? I want you to really, really process what you're seeing. I want you to really, really take it personal, because do understand, if you allow this to come into your life, the more adults that have a say in your children's lives that are not their parents, the worse these kids can turn out. Okay, parents, let's take a look at these videos. Let me get it set up. Video number 1, parents.
So when I was 16, I was kidnapped in the middle of the night and taken from Connecticut to Utah.
Spring Ridge markets themselves as healing teenage girls and mending broken families. I begged my parents not to leave me there.
No one told me what was happening or where I was going until I was dumped in the middle of the desert. And it turns out I was brought to wilderness rehab.
We had no TV. We weren't allowed to read certain books. Everything was controlled. They monitored our phone calls to our parents.
Freedom Village USA provides a place of second chances.
And when I got admitted there, I was open to the idea. Their prescription was through Jesus Christ that we were going to fix ourselves. You have to do these chores. You have to do these devotional experiences constantly. And so it was like the Bible 24/7. I'm a gay man. They would attack your sexuality.
In the US, minors don't have medical autonomy, which means that your parent or legal guardian can give consent for you. And since my mom had full custody, they literally only needed her signature to snatch me up in the middle of the night and fly me across the country.
To control the kids, they would just have other kids policing each other, and then they'll write them up. And then from there, you're sentenced in some sense to this punishment where you're isolated, where you're secluded from the rest of the population oftentimes. And then you have to do this activity where you pick up wood in upstate New York from one parking lot to the other, or it's a circle. And you do this for hours.
You wake up at 4:30 a.m. to go do some kind of labor. Take care of the horses, chop some wood, make breakfast. You do this, and then it's immediately time to start cleaning your dorm. Everything has to be spotless.
There was some staff members that was very clear that there were red flags going up. I remember the director smacking a person and excuse my language, but he smacked the shit out of him. And it was another time we saw he threw somebody in the air.
Did we beat you? No. Don't kid yourself. I'd like to a couple times.
Freedom Village is in the news with 4 right now cases of sexual assault.
Kids get tackled and juiced up with this stuff that knocks you out for days.
I had to move houses because I lived with the girl that I had a relationship with. So they moved me into another house called Cottonwood. And this is where I would be sexually, emotionally, and physically abused for the next year.
People will come and check to make sure that you're sleeping in your room every 10 minutes.
We found out after we graduated from this place and left that it wasn't even regulated. The state of New York had no idea what they were providing these kids. I mean, the sadness of all this is that a lot of these programs are still open, and particularly with the religious programs that subscribe to a fundamentalist Christian perspective, they are notorious of really attacking kids with this sort of conversion therapy sort of like approach with things.
We found thousands of allegations of death and abuse at these types of programs.
The video shows the moments leading up to the death of the Detroit teenager who was restrained by staff in a Kalamazoo youth home.
We also know from the survivor community that there are people who they could be in their 20s, their 30s, their 50s, and the trauma is so impacting that it still affects them today.
I was strangled, slapped across the face, watched in the shower by male staff.
As we saw the problem, we really saw that one of the main solutions is legislation. So, for example, there was no trainings for how do you report abuse, right?
I was 13 years old when I went to Turnabout Ranch. I feel like it's very important for me to speak on this because I kept my mouth shut for so long.
It's the survivor community that's really been trying to bring the this into the conversation so that we can all look at this issue and really see how can we ensure the safety and that everyone is doing the right thing for their kids. And this is not a business for money, but this is about really child welfare.
Okay, fathers, mothers, parents. That was the first video. And these are now adult men and women that went through residential treatment programs from their parents, giving them permission. So I don't know how many of them were court ordered to attend. And I don't know how many of them were given permission to attend by their parents. But what I do know is this: as a former state juvenile probation officer, I wasn't down with any of these programs, right? And parents, you really need to dig deep. You really, really need to dig deep, because these young people that are now adults, this trauma they have to deal with for the rest of their lives at the hands of their parents, right? Now, I'm sure I'm probably going to receive some comments. You don't know what you're talking about. Criminal justice system helps kids. Come on, Ephraim. This is what I will say as a state juvenile probation officer. You don't get to dismiss my experience of working as a criminal justice professional for 20 years. I'm not going to let that fly. You don't get to dismiss my experience, and you sure as hell don't get to dismiss what I saw and what I dealt with as a state juvenile probation officer. And I can tell you this: residential treatment centers, residential treatment facilities, as far as I'm concerned, they should all be shut down, because I think they're bullshit. They don't help children, right? I want to pose a question to parents. Why is it? Think about this. Now, these facilities, these programs, they're all for profit. So the government is doing business with for-profit centers, for-profit programs, billion-dollar industry, right? Parents, my question to you is this: do you ever think about, it's not really a question, it's more of a statement, question statement. Why is it when we have crises within families, there's never any money to help families deal with the crises that are going on within their families? If kids are running away from home, if kids are having substance abuse issues, whatever the case may be with the family that's intact, why is it the government can swoop in, remove your child, and then all of a sudden these services are provided outside of the family, instead of keeping that family intact and bringing services to the family in their own natural environment? You got to think about that. You have to really, really think about that. I would never allow adults around my children that I did not know. I don't know how they're being vetted. I don't know who the hell they are. And I'm sure as hell not going to trust them with my children. The next 3 videos I'm going to share with you, they're survivors of these treatment programs. They're survivors. They're going to tell you in their own words what happened to them. See, I'm not one of these people, don't believe the children. I believe kids. I've worked with children, thousands of children, for over 30 years, both in the criminal justice system and K-12 education. So I'm not one of these adults, don't believe the children. No, I believe children. I believe kids. I don't apologize for believing children, because I can tell you my experience working with thousands of children, they tell the truth. And when they're telling you the truth, you need to be listening, adults. It's very difficult for a child to make up some shit, because that's not how they process. See, if you never worked with children, it's very easy to say, don't believe the child. If you never advocated for kids, it's very easy to say, don't believe the child. No, I believe children. I've advocated for them and will always advocate for them. Because see, when the criminal justice system fails children, this is the aftermath. They have to deal with this for the rest of their life. And it's not good. Nothing good can come from the criminal justice system. Trust me, I used to battle with district attorneys. I used to battle with defense attorneys. I used to battle with criminal justice professionals because I just wasn't down with what I was seeing. I wasn't down for what was happening to a lot of these kids. But the parents, you have the ultimate say with your children. You are the parents. You are rearing them. You are raising them. So you better check yourself before you get wrecked. Don't turn your children over to the government, ever. Because the government doesn't have your best interests of your children. They do not. Do your research, parents, on these residential treatment programs before you decide to give them a pass to harm your child permanently. Do your research. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, parents, next video. Let me get it set up. Okay, parents, this is video number 2.
Get the off of me! Get off of me! You bastard!
When this video of 2 kids being taken by force went viral, people were shocked.
I can see it on film. Oh! Don't hurt her. You're pulling down my pants. Legalize kidnapping. That's what you're doing.
But actually, it had been ordered by a judge, and the same thing has happened to children across the country.
I'm terrified. Tomorrow is the day that they're going to try to take me. They're going to try to force me to my abuser's house.
I would mention the ways our dad abused us, and they would say our mom must be telling us lies and manipulating us.
I just want to go home.
I want mommy cuddles.
We were being held against our will, and I'm speaking out because I don't want anybody else to go through it.
If anyone could just share this, just spread awareness for what's going on. There's people outside and they're going to try and get us, so anyone who can, please come.
Everybody, please.
Okay. We're really scared.
We have people that is
Not going.
But do you know where you're supposed to go? Do you know where?
A reunification camp? Yeah.
I was trying to process why these 2 adults were cornering my friends. I wasn't really thinking in this moment. I kind of just walked up and gave them a big hug.
Maya and Sebastian were 15 and 11. Their parents had divorced, and they were refusing to see their mother.
And you have to help the judge to understand exactly.
I have talked to the judge. I have been a witness before the judge. I have described exactly what my mother has done. The judge has done nothing. Away from me!
I put myself between the transporters and Maya and Sebastian. I really thought I could stop them from being taken.
And nobody can stop what happened now. Nobody. Police officers are here. Everything is legal. The people around you now are against the court order. You have to understand that.
The day before she was taken, Maya testified that her mother was abusive, but the judge gave her mother sole custody, banned her father from seeing her and her brother, and ordered the kids into something called a reunification program. Supposedly, this was to repair their relationship with their mom. I found in my reporting that judges have ordered at least 600 kids into these reunification programs. There is actually a very predictable pattern. There's the abuse allegation. There's the alienation rebuttal. There's the custody switch. And there's the program. One young woman, Allie Toyos, was one of the first kids to start posting about these programs on social media.
Reunification camps are camps that are part of the troubled teen industry and allow abusers the ability to buy back the custody of their children through family court.
So few of the abductions get videoed.
The Maya and Sebastian video was shocking to me. It was very hard to watch as a survivor. I really was taken back to when my sister and I were transported. Maya and Sebastian were abducted from Santa Cruz, California, and taken to Lynn Steinberg. Lynn Steinberg is a licensed therapist who runs a forced reunification camp to make money off of forcing kids back into the custody of their abusers.
What was put out on the internet was that I had somehow kidnapped these children and I was child trafficking them, and that they had just disappeared off the face of the earth.
So in your opinion, did the transporters do anything wrong that night?
They did nothing wrong. This was a court order and everybody had to obey court orders. The judge ordered for the children to be in my 4-day therapy program. The children rejected their mother because they were brainwashed into rejecting their mother. Parental alienation is when one parent turns the children against the other parent following a divorce or separation. When I first started, the judge or the lawyer would accuse me of peddling snake oil, or they wouldn't allow me to use the word parental alienation. Now, when I go into a courtroom, they know who I am. I get the most severe cases. They always come to my program with false allegations of abuse. The children do. They're pretty, I hate to say laughable.
There is no major medical or psychiatric or psychological or scientific organization that has stated that they consider parental alienation to be a valid scientific concept. Very often, when there have been allegations of parental alienation, the child is sent to a treatment program which is essentially an experimental treatment, is not a proven effective or safe treatment. These venues are, as I understand it, usually a place in a rented apartment or a hotel or motel.
We were taken to a hotel called the Come On Inn. I was 16 when I was taken to Family Bridges. The next 3 days really consisted of just watching YouTube videos.
Memory works a little bit more like a Wikipedia page. You can go in there and change it, but so can other people.
They were really chosen to make us not believe our own experiences.
What is alienation? Not a nation of aliens.
Welcome Back, Pluto was a very interesting video.
Alienated doesn't mean an alien ate something.
They told us that if we learned about parental alienation, we would be cured and we would have a great relationship with our father.
According to practitioners of the parental alienation treatments, if you don't have substantiated evidence, for example, a Child Protective Services investigation, the child's disclosure of abuse is not in and of itself considered to be evidence that there was abuse.
It was all, oh, you didn't experience abuse. It was all made up. Your mom told you to say these things.
Well, everybody knows children lie.
The original writing about the parental alienation concept was by a child psychiatrist named Richard Gardner.
Dr. Richard Gardner is a one-man antidote to what he calls sex abuse hysteria.
In the early 1980s, I began to see a new phenomenon. It is a syndrome that arises in the context of a child custody dispute.
Judges generally awarded women full custody, but that started to change in the 70s. Judges started to say, let's just see which parent will best serve the needs of the child. So judges started turning to mental health professionals. for assistance. And one of the most influential mental health professionals working in family court was Richard Gardner. He was an advisor to judges deciding custody cases.
Consider what Dr. Gardner says a good mother would do if her child told her of sexual abuse.
I don't believe you. I'm going to beat you for saying it. Don't you ever talk that way again about your father.
Gardner thought that a lot of angry, mentally unstable women were brainwashing their children against their fathers.
Step number one is to take the child away and indoctrinations. And then it requires a transitional site. An option, and I'm very serious about this, is to take the kid and put him in jail a day or two, juvenile detention center.
Gardner's ideas didn't catch on right away.
I have zero success in convincing courts to do this.
Gardner had some successors. That included Richard Warshak and William Burnett.
There are many children out there who are being influenced and manipulated to take sides with one parent against the other.
I am going to tell you about our effort to get this condition, this mental condition, accepted as an official diagnosis.
Judges didn't necessarily know that the theory hadn't been scientifically validated.
We're actually hosting a family for a high road to reunification. So we're on day 2. We have a dad and a couple of kids.
Nowadays, as in the Maya and Sebastian case, fathers sometimes get accused of alienation too.
The basic tragedy of parental alienation is that we have a cottage industry which thrives on increasing conflict between parents in child custody situations.
If you include transport costs, some parents spend more than $70,000 on the 4-day program.
I'm not convinced that judges understand what they're ordering. We have children who are being given into the custody of parents who have been abusive in the past and are likely to be abusive again.
How could you say no to that?
That's true. That's cute.
In 2016, this was all new at that time. Nobody had even heard of these programs. Do you think that summer of 2016 maybe?
I said, like, what happens if I don't go? My mom told me that they would come take me by force. I was 14.
The original ruling was the children stay with me because Michael's drinking was out of control. He had to blow into a breathalyzer prior to visitation so that I could be guaranteed the children's safety while he was there.
When my dad was trying to get us back, I told Judge Ostrowski that I was afraid to go back there. I'd get screamed and yelled at, locked in my room, locked outside, hit, pushed, thrown things at. Okay. Eventually, my dad resorted to self-harm. He would slam his head into the table or beat himself up when he was screaming at me. Judge Ostrowski eventually decided that we were going to do this parent reunification therapy with my dad and that my mom had alienated us.
They were forced into the program called Turning Points for Families.
Turning Points for Families places unqualified confidence in the alienated parent to heal the child and therefore initially anoints the alien.
Turning Points, which is run by a therapist named Linda Gottlieb.
Gottlieb calls her program a therapeutic vacation. She claims almost 100% success rate. But once again, what's the success? What was the problem?
Okay, parents, I apologize. Had an internet issue, got disconnected. So let me get the video back to where it was. I apologize. Give me a second here. And I'll get this going again. Technology, y'all. Technology. Let me get this going. I apologize. Okay, let's see where we're at here. Okay, let me see. Okay, let me cancel out of that. Let's see. I apologize, parents. Okay, let me see. Okay, parents, here we go. Continuation of the current video. I apologize.
Success rate. But once again, what's the success? What was the problem?
No child rejects a parent unless they're influenced. We equate the process to a brainwashing in a cult.
Some mothers whose kids had been taken from them and sent to turning points shared recordings of their phone calls.
The daughter is under your spell. What you did is criminal. But I'm giving you an opportunity to change that with meaningful letters.
Parents write the letters because they think that that way they're going to get to be able to see their kids again. And unfortunately, that's often not the case.
You can free your daughter from believing her father abused her, and as long as she doesn't recover, I will not recommend lifting the no contact period.
Linda, I think I'm demonstrating that I'm trying. This is my third draft of this letter.
No, it's too late for my football career.
Ashton, he ran away prior to aging out of the program and came back. And I know that was very hard for him to do because he had to leave his brother behind, who he loves dearly. And he struggles with that choice every day.
Happy birthday. Today is your 15th birthday. I really miss you. And I hope I get to see you soon.
They were supposed to be sequestered there for a weekend, but it's turned into 6 years. The baby, he was 9. I hope that I see him before he turns 18. Do I think it's going to happen? Honestly, probably not.
It's still hard to believe that she's gone. It just doesn't seem fair to Maya and Sebastian that for the rest of their lives they're gonna have to live with the memory of what they've gone through. We just don't know where she is, if she's safe. Even though it's been 6.5 months, we're not stopping. We're not gonna stop our fight until they're returned. We're pushing to fix the broken system itself by bringing light to the issues, sharing our story, sharing Maya and Sebastian's story.
We published an article mentioning the children in the viral video, and a few days later, Maya reached out to me.
I haven't been able to talk to my friends or my grandparents or my step siblings or my dad or my stepmom or any of those people who are actually supportive family in 7 months now.
So are you concerned that this could go on until you're both 18?
Yeah, I'm pretty much expected it will.
Later that night, they ran away from their mom's house.
We finally got away, so just update, and we're doing okay now that we got away. We can't tell you where we are, but for obvious reasons. We're safe and we're okay.
These camps need to be shut down to prevent further trauma to kids, and I think one way we could do that is through legislation.
Some of you may have heard this particular instance from Santa Cruz, where 2 children were ripped from their homes in the middle of the night, almost like a kidnapping.
We will now turn to the witness.
Hi, my name is Maya Lang. I'm 16 from Santa Cruz. We ran away from our mother last month. We still aren't allowed to live with our father because of the court orders. The court called me a liar, ignored my testimony, and gave full custody to my mother. 3 large adults dragged us to their car. This was the start of reunification camp. The therapist interrogated us for 4 days. They threatened us, called us sociopaths, and said we had, quote, false memories. This is our family court system, and this was deemed in our best interest. I ask you to please vote yes.
This bill will save lives and prohibits counseling that takes place in an unregulated, non-clinical setting, counseling that is coercive and threatening, especially to children.
I think it's now been nearly 8 months since we've been able to see our dad.
Can you tell me about what your lives have been like over the past few weeks when you've been in hiding?
There's nowhere that really feels entirely safe because our mom's still out there and she still has custody of us.
If they do try to take you, what will you do?
I'm not getting taken again. And if I do, I'll run and run and run again.
This is not a path that is healthy for any kid. To force kids into a relationship with any parent, whether they're abusive or not, is still very traumatic.
I have severe emotional trauma that I'm going to have to live with probably for the rest of my life. I can't see a therapist because it just creates a panic for me.
Once I'm free to go about my life, I want to be the person who can help protect other children and make this not a reality.
There we go.
Oh.
Hey.
I used to describe myself more as like a quiet person, but now I've become a little bit louder. My friends have already been talking to lawmakers and tried to create this as a national movement, and I want to keep doing that work.
I have some really, really amazing news. PK's Law, which is a law here in California that will keep kids safe from what happened to me and my brother, just passed the state Senate.
I stand here today with my brother, my friends Kirsten and Claire, who spoke for me when we could not, Governor Gavin Newsom. Please sign PK's Law
and protect me, my brother, and so many other children like us in California. Thank you.
Ayes 72, no 0. Bill passes.
Okay, fathers. Excellent video. Now, let me give you a different perspective when it comes to the criminal justice system, fathers. When we look at the economics of the criminal justice system, the criminal justice system is a cash cow. That's what it is. The criminal justice system is a part of a system that, yes, there's rehabilitation when it comes to juveniles. It's punishment for adults, but it's set up for rehabilitation when it comes to juveniles, okay? The problem is, when I say economics of the criminal justice system is a cash cow, is because you have these residential treatment facilities, like the woman said, the therapist said, 4 days, $70,000. Where's that money coming from? Who's paying for it? Because if my memory serves me correct, most families who cannot afford their children to be placed outside the home, guess what happens? Even though they're taxpayers, they're still going to be hit with the bill on a sliding scale. So if your kid is removed from your house and they're placed in a residential treatment center and it's ordered by the court, you're still paying for it, parents, on a sliding scale. That's what's going to happen. My suggestion to any parent, if you're getting divorced, my suggestion to you, the mothers and the fathers, get along in the best interest of your children. What I don't understand is this. I don't understand how parents would allow their personal bullshit from family court end up in juvenile court. I don't understand that. I never understood it. As a professional working in the criminal justice system, I saw it time and time again. I just do not understand how, if you were once married, you would allow strangers into your life to make decisions in the best interest of your kids. You would allow the government to make decisions in the best interest of your children. Parents, you know your children better than anyone. If you are not getting along as husband and wife and you decide to get divorced, I'm telling you to get along. I'm telling you to do what's in the best interest of your children. Because when you don't, you see the shit that can happen to them. You see the bullshit that comes along with it in the criminal justice system. So your kids are going to pay. They're going to pay because they don't get to pick their parents. So I'm not about to sit up here and side with either the father or the mother. What I'm saying is, parents, you don't allow it to come to this. Because when you do, you no longer have a say. And it's interesting to me when kids get turned over to the government, how these strangers get to dictate to parents what's wrong with their kids. Think about it, parents. Think about it. Okay. Parents, let's take a look at this next video that I'm going to set up here. And yes, parents, I'm bothered. I'm really, really bothered. You have to understand, I was a state juvenile probation officer. So I saw this crap more than not. And it's absolutely horrible that parents won't work out their differences, but will allow the criminal justice system to come into their lives and make decisions on the best interests of their children. I don't get it. I really don't get it, because these kids pay. That's what it is. Okay, let me get this set up, parents. Okay, parents, this is the third video.
So this is the binder I kept all my letters from my mom in. My dearest Teddy, you hate me. You never thought you could hate me more than you did yesterday. You're about to enter a school that will help you. I am crying as I write this. I am scared that you will never forgive me or understand that I am saving your life. XO, I love you, Mom. Yes, that was my mom and I at first time she came to visit me. And PC1, Parent-Child Seminar 1.
This is when she came to do a workshop with you?
Yeah, this is the first time she came to visit me.
You look happy.
Oh, it was very forced. This was a letter my mom wrote me on March 9th, 2006. You are not the same hoodlum we sent off to school. You are becoming a young man, and the young man I always dreamed you would be. I am so proud of how hard you have worked to achieve this. It's frustrating because I know she didn't know the truth, and that she was kind of falling for this act that I was putting on that I knew I had to put on.
Growing up, Theo Charles says he struggled with anxiety, depression, and suicidal thoughts. By high school, he was basically a runaway, crashing on friends' couches, using drugs, and harming himself. That's when his parents intervened.
There was this knock at the door, and I remember I was kind of looked at my mom because I was wondering, who that might be. And it was these two really big people. And the first guy, he grabbed my wrist and slammed my arms against the counter. And next thing I knew, there was a knee up against the back of my knee, and my knees were on the ground, and it all happened so fast. All the guy said is, you can do this the easy way or the hard way. Either way, you're coming with us. And
Did you know where you were going or
Not
what
at
was
all.
happening to you?
Not at all. I remember waking up the next morning and just being so bewildered. Here I am, I don't know a soul. I have no direction. I just went through this insane experience of being kidnapped the night before.
Theo was brought to Cross Creek in Laverkin, Utah, a tough love boarding school that cost thousands of dollars a month. It was part of a wide network of for-profit reform schools around the world that catered to desperate parents. Theo is just one of thousands of students who went through the program at Cross Creek.
Yeah, it's so funny because people are like, oh, you must have been so happy to be there. I'm like, clearly I had the smile.
He's since connected with other alumni who are still trying to process what happened there. They shared materials from their time at Cross Creek with Vice News.
I had just turned 13 years old. They did a full intake cavity search. I had to strip naked. They, did this whole thing where they had you spread your legs and shake, and then had a staff member march me to the showers. It was a male staff member, and so I had a supervised shower, which was also very traumatizing. I remember the water being very cold. They took me to what was going to be my bedroom, and I went to bed.
The days were wake up, do your chores. If they found a fuzz on the floor, you got a consequence. I was so afraid of doing something wrong all the time.
They did have school, which was mostly just kind of you go to a room and do independent study.
What were the tactics that the staff used that you really remember?
Shame was a big one.
We had seminars. So every month we had a seminar we had to go through, which was 3 days of intense, grueling
Mind fuckery.
Therapy. And by therapy, I mean there is nothing in there that is evidence-based. They did rape reenactments on the girls that had been sexually abused before the program, and they would have a male staff come in and reenact the rape on the victim. And while that was happening, we were instructed to yell things at her like whore, slut. The whole program is based off of a break you down to build you back up mentality. So literally to destroy you so that they could meld you into what they were needing you to be.
Anytime they broke a rule, big or small, former students say they were punished, forced to be silent, or put in isolation, sometimes for months.
You're in a cement room with nothing. Technically, you were supposed to sit the entire time and be quiet. But of course, after a while, you start mentally breaking. So I would do things like sing. I would be restrained for that, or try to like move around in my cell, get restrained for that. They also made sure to come in every single day and tell me that my parents cared so little about me that they knew how bad I was, and they're choosing not to come pick me up. And that I had to live with knowing that I was forgotten, that nobody cared about me.
It effectively breaks you. You lose your sanity. You lose hope. That's the big one. You lose hope. And once that's gone, there's nothing.
Cross Creek closed in 2012. The campus has since been sold and turned into a motel. Vice News spoke with more than a dozen former students whose stories echo what Sarah, Mary, and Theo describe, as do the accounts of numerous alumni who have posted their experiences online. Some former staffers we talked to support their allegations. Ian Demers was there at the same time as Theo.
I guess I really wanted to believe that they were doing more good than harm. But when I left, I felt that they were doing more harm than good.
How did you find this job?
This was back when you would still pick up a job from the paper. Sunday Classified was searching through. It was listed as a youth detention center that was looking for counselors.
What appealed to you about the job?
There wasn't a whole lot of work. I think it was paying somewhere between $8 and $11 an hour. At that time, it would have been more money than I had ever made.
And did you have any experience with children, with education?
Like absolutely none. I had no idea what I was getting into when I started that job. Not a bit of it. And what it became was far worse than what I thought it would have been.
What did you see?
Kids would be locked up by themselves for days without even being able to talk to anyone except their counselor, and behind a closed door, and then they're not allowed to talk about anything that happens in there.
Did you feel like you had to go along with it?
I thought they must be licensed, right? They must have authority on some, like the state must come in and see this and deem this to be appropriate. Who am I, a 25-year-old who hasn't made his way, doesn't have a high school diploma, who got a GED? Who am I to tell anybody how they should be running anything?
Vice News contacted several former executives associated with the program. They categorically deny all allegations of abuse and say the program was licensed by the state of Utah, citing that as proof they weren't doing anything wrong.
It was a good program. It served thousands of kids over the years. And there's the few disgruntled that didn't like their parents trying to help them.
You think the people speaking out are a negligible percentage of the students that went through the programs?
That went through Cross Creek, yep.
But hundreds of students and their families who spent time at Cross Creek and associated programs alleged a range of abuses at these facilities in a legal fight that was ultimately dismissed. Over the years, similar programs have also faced lawsuits and investigations over allegations of physical and sexual abuse and the deaths of students in their care. But the industry keeps going, particularly in Utah, where reform schools are still operating and bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars every year.
My name is Carly, and I'm a survivor.
The demand for change inside these programs has gone viral. Survivors are now organizing as a movement called Breaking Code Silence, which got national attention when Paris Hilton went public with her experience at a Utah facility.
I was not allowed to speak to or look at my peers. The staff verbally abused me, calling me vulgar names. It should never be said to a child.
The pressure is working. Utah State Senator Mike McKell co-sponsored legislation he sees as a first step towards reform. It'll force more inspections and transparency about treatment methods. It's the state's first attempt to set new regulations for these programs in 15 years.
So it's a much bigger industry than I ever realized. There's at least 100 facilities in the state of Utah. It creates 5,600 jobs. And we have more than 1,000 kids that'll cycle through these programs every single year. We have more programs than almost any other state in the nation.
Do you think the size of the industry has anything to do with how little it's been regulated, how much money it's been bringing in?
I certainly think that helps. I think our oversight has been lacking.
Given, the stories that you've heard and some of what these, at this point, hundreds if not thousands of students have said who have gone through these programs, why not just shut this industry down?
I think that's a fair question. That's something that I wrestle with. And as I look at the industry, I ask myself, is there value to the industry? And to be completely honest with you, I'm not sure. I know there are kids that are helped in the state of Utah, but I know we've hurt a lot of kids as well.
You have children. Would you send your children to one of these programs?
No.
I felt the program had worked. I thought everything was beneficial for him. I thought he had grown, I had grown, we had grown together, and kumbaya. I knew this family who had gone through it, and they had said it was a good program for one and all, meaning the family as well. I wanted to get him somewhere for his own good and for his safety. And that's all I saw it as.
What was your impression of what would happen there?
Well, I knew they'd be tough, but I thought it all made sense, and it would be, what I was looking for and how I could get the help for my son who wouldn't take it voluntarily. I want to point out to the fact that we were never alone. I would be on the phone with the therapist first, and then you would come in the room, and then we would have on speakerphone our conversation. I was not allowed to tell anyone where he was. I know our mail was intercepted and read ahead of time.
They told you at the time, we'll read your mail?
We're going to read your mail that you send to him. We'll see, make sure it's appropriate. I knew that the letters he sent to me, they would be reading as well ahead of time before they posted it.
At any point, were there any alarm bells or red flags for you about what was going on there?
They said to me, your child's going to manipulate you, whatever they can do, so that you'll take them out of this environment. And it just seemed very logical.
I think when I came home, I was so under the influence of the program that I wasn't sure if what I had gone through was abusive or not. By the time you graduate, they do such a good job of warping your view on everything that at that point you're going along with this narrative of, it was what I needed.
How do you feel about Cross Creek now?
It was a manipulative, well-orchestrated, hurtful project that they put us through.
When you try to explain to people what you went through there,
People didn't believe us. It sounds so far-fetched that people, first of all, they're like, well, she was making these choices, so she got herself there. So it's called breaking code silence because we were put on silence all the time. We were told not to tell anybody. Silence, 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 silence. And this feeling of coming back and being like, we are no longer silent, and we are using our voices as a powerful instrument, which is in itself so healing.
what are the things that you experienced that you want people to know the most about what happened?
That it's still happening.
Exactly.
There's no federal oversight of these facilities. Utah's reform legislation was signed into law and will take effect in May. It could change the landscape for these programs and the teenagers in them. But thousands of people say they were victimized at these places over the past few decades. As of now, there's no plan to help them. What was going on with Theo that led you to ultimately pursue Cross Creek?
In a lot of respects, Teddy was a virtual runaway. I didn't know where he was going. I didn't know where he was sleeping.
I was living on like various friends' couches, kind of just whoever would, take me in for the night. I really wasn't here very often.
I was worried about him not being alive. I was worried about his life because he was suicidal. I didn't know where he was, who he was with. I didn't know anything. We offered him therapy. He wouldn't go. I needed to keep him safe.
What was he like when he left the program?
You were real quiet and real, you didn't run out and go see, you just weren't you. You weren't real social.
There was this thing called the life contract, which basically was an agreement that you put out on paper that you were going to behave by a set of guidelines instructed by the program, and you had to graduate from the life contract to really claim your life back. I was very quiet when I came home. I just wanted to fly under the radar and not ever have to go back to that place.
Did you blame her?
I didn't know what to think. I think I was confused at the world. I was brainwashed when I came out. I think that when I was kind of grappling with figuring out who I was and grappling with accepting the fact that I was abused, I was definitely pissed. I was pissed at the fact that you were so unopen to listening to me being like, hey, something happened. For the longest time, I had a lot of emotion. I had a lot of anger. I had a lot of sorrow. I had a lot of trauma. And I didn't know what to do with it. I was 17 years old, and I certainly projected some of it towards you because at the time I wasn't emotionally mature enough to realize that you had been preyed upon as well.
Okay, fathers, parents. That was video number 3. And a couple of things. You had a representative from the state of Utah tell you he wouldn't even send his own children to these programs. You heard it. So why would you allow your children to be turned over to the government? You had a representative tell you from the state of Utah he would not send his children there. I'm telling you, parents, you're talking to a former state of Colorado juvenile probation officer. These programs are straight trash, as far as I'm concerned. Fathers of daughters, you cannot allow the disconnect with your daughters to the point to where they end up in a crisis. If we are part of their life, I don't understand where the breakdown is. I do not understand how our lives are so busy. We are not aware of what our children are doing and going through. This makes no sense to me. I'm not passing judgment, but you're talking to a criminal justice professional. And I am telling you, the criminal justice system doesn't have an answer for you at all. And many of these parents, when they send their kids, if their kids survive this and become adult children, you better be hopeful that your kids even talk to you again. You better be hopeful that they even ever talk to you again because of what you did to them and what they end up experiencing. It makes no sense to me, none of it. You heard workers. I mean, these facilities, they hire people, a GED, a high school diploma, no experience working with children. This is what you're turning your kids over to, parents? You better do your research. I'm telling you, you better do your damn research. Okay? If your kids are struggling, birth to 10, catch it before they become teenagers. Get the interventions that they need as baby boys and baby girls. Kids just don't wake up as teenagers and decide they're going to do some shit. I've never met kids that do that. These are problems that are long-standing within the family unit. Parents, you better handle your business. Because if you let the government in, it's on you. Okay. Last video, parents. Let me get it set up.
At the point that it
Okay, parents, this is the last video. And then we're going to finish up with this live stream. Thank you for your attendance today. Appreciate you all.
Great. At the point that it was getting to, I wasn't surprised that something bad happened.
This is a $23 billion industry.
They sent her home in a box. If she was that sick, why didn't I know?
After my face was paralyzed, and I was just like so confused, like, why are they doing this to me?
In America's mountain wilderness, outposts of a multi-billion-dollar business operate beyond the public glare. This complex is one of hundreds of treatment centers across America for so-called troubled teens. Children with all manner of issues, from bad behavior to video game addiction to severe depression, are sent to what is essentially a boarding school for the unruly. Some stay for months or even years.
Our goal is to help these students become the best versions of themselves.
Desperate parents struggling with difficult children are lured in by the promise that their problems can be fixed with a mix of therapy and tough love. But this is an industry plagued by stories of neglect, abuse, and even death.
She always lighted up her room. I never thought I would have to bury my child. I mean, I wasn't even there for, I got told too late to even be there for her.
Dean's daughter Taylor loved animals and trips to Disney World with her siblings, but she began to struggle with what her father calls emotional issues. She left their home in Washington to attend Diamond Ranch Academy, a troubled teen school in Utah. By last December, after 15 months there, she was dead. The cause of death hasn't yet been determined, but Taylor's family believe she had sepsis, a blood infection which is the body's extreme reaction to infection. Her dad doesn't even know where or why she died.
I never got anything about her going to the doctor. If she was that sick,
Why didn't you know?
why didn't I know? And they should have told me something.
I would imagine you never expect to send your child to what's supposed to be a reputable educational facility and not get them back.
No, they sent her home in a box. I mean, I still think one of these days she's just gonna walk in the door. It's not gonna happen.
School medical records obtained by Sky News suggest Taylor was vomiting regularly in the days before she died. One staff note says Taylor was angry because she felt like staff weren't trying to help with her being sick lately. Dean, do you think this whole industry needs reform across the board?
Oh, 100%. They look at our children as paychecks. The 12-ish plus $1,000 a month. Taylor's just gonna be really missed. Losing her devastated our family, our whole community. When I said Taylor was loved.
They told all the students this morning.
Listen to how staff were told of Taylor's death. This is a covert audio recording of a director breaking the news, provided to me by a whistleblower.
Unfortunately, like for me, this is the first time I've had to deal with this. Probably won't be the last, depending on how long I stay here.
Because Taylor's death isn't an isolated case. In Utah alone, 3 children have died in the past 2 years at residential facilities. Scores more allege physical and emotional abuse. I'm on a journey from the capital, Salt Lake City, into the rugged depths of this state. There are more than 100 troubled teen schools in Utah. Most are privately run and often charge between $10,000 and $15,000 a month for each child. Some teenagers tell of being made to hike for hours with bags filled with rocks and being deprived of food and sleep. For many, their experience of this industry begins in the pitch black with a so-called authorized kidnapping. Parents pay for their children to be taken from home and transported to facilities, sometimes thousands of miles away, and even restrained with handcuffs or cable ties.
Strangers go into teenagers' bedrooms in the middle of the night, take them often from their beds, bundle them into the back of vans, and drive them down dark roads like this to these camps in the middle of nowhere. It really is hard to believe that this is legal.
They're completely cut off when they show up in the middle of the night. And I've been there, and the first thing they ask is, "Where am I?" The one kid asks, "Where am I?" It's like, dude, you're in Utah.
Matt was a night watch attendant at Diamond Ranch Academy where Taylor Goodridge died. He says he encountered multiple instances of physical confrontations at the campus.
I felt like every day I was coming in and there was new holes in the wall. Body size hole here, fist size hole there, head size hole there. Some of the kids do it. Sometimes it's from the staff members putting the kids into the wall.
How cut off are these kids from the outside world when they're in these schools, residential centres?
If they tried to mail a letter off to their parents, it would get sent back with corrections on it. You can't say this, you can't say that. And so even their letters were getting, I guess, redacted basically, so that certain information wasn't leaving the school.
What was Diamond Ranch like from your experience? What was it like in the way that they cared for the children in their custody?
At the point that it was getting to, I wasn't surprised that something bad happened. I just was getting a feeling. I was getting more and more uncomfortable, even on the boys' campus, with them not being taken care of. I was overworking myself. I was working 6-7 days a week because I honestly didn't trust anybody else with my group of kids.
So this is you at Diamond Ranch. Yeah.
Shay Renner was sent to Diamond Ranch for several months in 2015 because of behavioural problems. Speaking publicly about her experiences there for the first time, she claims staff would terrorise her on a weekly basis.
Were you surprised, Shay, when you heard what happened to Taylor there?
Not at all. Just that, like, if more people knew, like, she could still be here. Yeah, like, if I knew, like, my rights and did something sooner, like, who knows?
Shay Renner alleges staff would physically restrain her, not as a legitimate practice, but as a form of punishment. She suffered partial facial paralysis after being held down on the ground.
My feet were taken from underneath me and I was dropped to the floor. And they started doing the pressure points and I was dropped down again for the second time. And that time, instead of just doing these pressure points, they went onto my face. And after a while, they released me and I could feel like my face. There was something funny with my face.
These pictures
a lot of things felt hopeless and helpless. I remember, like, after my face was paralyzed, I was sitting in front of my counselor and I was just like so confused, like, why are they doing this to me?
Hi there. We're from Sky News, UK television station.
Nobody at Diamond Ranch would speak officially about these allegations, but as we were filming, Riley Diaz, a director, emerges from the building.
Are children safe coming here? Can you answer that though? That's the most basic. Diamond Ranch.
Have you gone onto our website?
Yeah, I've seen your videos, but it conflicts with what we're being told.
But what's not transparent is how Taylor Goodridge died. Her dad says he doesn't even know whether she died here or died at the hospital, or, you know, he doesn't even know the answer to, for a parent who's in such profound pain to not know whether his daughter died here, died at hospital, whether she was, you know, he thinks her sickness was ignored by staff, and
I just can't say anything.
You can't answer those questions.
I can't say anything. I can't say anything.
In a statement, a spokesperson for Diamond Ranch Academy says, "We're unable to reply to specific allegations relating to specific students due to the operation of various federal and state laws. Diamond Ranch Academy is contesting the allegations in the appropriate venues and will present evidence in court as opposed to the media." Taylor's death has prompted fresh calls for major reform of this industry by people who say that these residential facilities are putting profit over child welfare.
There's Paris. Here we are at Paris's school.
Leading the charge is Paris Hilton. She spent time in 3 troubled teen facilities. For nearly a year, aged 16, she was here at Provo Canyon School in the foothills of Utah's Wasatch Mountains. Says she was verbally, physically, and sexually abused.
We'll prep posters.
Together with Rebecca, a manager at her company, they push for reform of the troubled teen industry.
We are approached every single day with survivors of this industry who are coming out of these particular programs and stating that they too have been abused.
Paris alleges she was woken in the middle of the night and forced to undergo sham gynecological exams. Others who went to Provo claim they were force-fed medication and held in solitary confinement for 20 hours a day. In response to the allegations, Provo Canyon's owners say the school was sold in 2000 and they cannot comment on the operations or student experience prior to that time. But they do say they don't condone or promote any form of abuse.
I don't feel you can look at this industry without looking at the profit motivations of it. So we've calculated that this is a $23 billion industry, and they're treating around 200 to 300,000 kids annually. And so these facilities are incentivized to keep kids longer, to bill for services, and obviously the list goes on and on.
At Utah's state capitol, Senator Mike McKell is working on national laws to protect children in troubled teen schools. He wants to regulate the secure transportation industry, known for those authorized kidnappings.
Kids that are picked up in the middle of the night by 2 large men. When you start treatment with that level of trauma, I think it's extremely problematic. If I'm king for the day, I ban it entirely. I just don't think, I think the amount of damage we're doing versus the amount of good we're creating, I think the damage far outweighs the good. I've got kids. Would I send my kids to a facility? Not a chance. I would never do that based on what I've seen.
Many of the troubled teen graduates I've spoken to describe a system which has done more to harm than help. Taylor Goodridge's family will never know what she might have done with her life. Instead, they're left with 2 boxes of her belongings returned from Diamond Ranch, a graduation medal, and letters from her peers. It is little comfort, but they hope her tragic death will result in the school being shut down. They want more accountability too, of an industry which takes in the most vulnerable, but has for too long operated unchecked. Martha Kellner, Sky News, Utah.
Well, we've had a response to Martha's report from Utah's Health and Human Services Department, who've given us this statement. Residential programs are a critical part of Utah's mental health system and continuum, and the health and safety of the vulnerable populations they serve must be their highest priority. We want to make sure all Utah licensed providers are in full compliance with the rules to ensure the safety of those they serve.
Okay, parents. When the criminal justice system fails children, the troubled teen industry. It's got a name. The troubled teen industry. That's the name. It's a cash cow. $23 billion. It's a cash cow. Parents, we could do a lot better ourselves than turning them over to the government. Okay, fathers of daughters, thank you for participating today. Another live stream. A live stream once a week. Grow that YouTube channel is grateful, and we're thankful for the participation of all fathers, regardless of your ethnic group, background, and or culture. All fathers are welcome. So fathers, just wanted to share today, and hopefully I was able to provide some information that could help you make a better informed decision regarding our children. This is serious because these kids will have trauma for the rest of their lives if you turn them over to the criminal justice system. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. I worked it for 20 years. I know. I was on the receiving end of these kids. I had to advocate for a lot of these children, and nothing good can come out of it. Not only is that my personal experience, that's my professional experience. Nothing good can come out of it, parents. Okay, I will be doing another live stream. I believe I'm doing another live stream tomorrow. I'm going to do back-to-back live stream. So fathers, thank you. Appreciate you. Keep your heads up. Kiss them babies. Love them babies. And mi amigos, hasta la próxima semana. Adios. I appreciate you all. Till next week. I'm out. Peace.